Hello and welcome to the next edition of 300 Seconds on Agency Growth. My name is Patrick. Today I have the pleasure of welcoming Hannah Dempsey. Hi Hannah.
Hi Patrick, thanks for having me.
Thank you. So Hannah is the VP of Marketing at Jellyfish, and Hannah's been at Jellyfish for 14 years. So that means she has experience of them being a small independent agency, turning into a big global agency, and now obviously part of the Brandtech Group. So hopefully you can navigate us on that journey. So
I can indeed, yeah. I mean, when I started at Jellyfish, it'll be 14 years next month. And when I first started, it was, our head office was in Reigate, little town in Surrey. 80 people, I think. I think I was like the 81st person. And we had a team in South Africa as well who did a lot of resourcing. And one person in the US working from home. One person,
wow.
Yeah. One
home.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just secured a big client out there. One person working from the US. And then, we got bigger and bigger. And then in 2019, we had investment from Fimalac. And as part of that, we then acquired some other companies. And that really expanded Jellyfish into other global markets. We got huge, acquired a company in France, in Brazil, in Italy, and it really expanded our global footprint. And at the same time, we started to expand into APAC. And that grew us from, 1,000 people kind of working predominantly in the US and the UK. And all of a sudden, you're then kind of, coming up to 2,000 people working globally. Wow. So that was my first experience of kind of big mergers and acquisitions. We'd acquired other companies before that. And then, 20 months ago, we were acquired by the Brandtech Group ourselves as Jellyfish. So, still as Jellyfish, still just kind of forming under the Brandtech Group umbrella. But it's where I think I've seen probably the most change in my 14 years at Jellyfish.
Right, excellent. And Jellyfish is probably probably one of the most well-known of the digital agencies. How's the brand changed in your 14 years, or the importance that brand has within the company?
I think, when I first joined, we were very much leaning into the jellyfish vibe, and then the actual kind of marine animal jellyfish.
Right.
Yeah, and that kind of went away kind of a couple of years later, and, we've been through several iterations of the brand. I think there's been about 5 or 6 different iterations of the brand since I've been there. And, we've just kind of had a big brand relaunch,
Yep.
and, that kind of came about really because of the, we have, made changes, and we're almost kind of not necessarily a new company, but, now being under the Brandtech Group, we spent the last kind of 18 months, 20 months understanding kind of, who we are now as Jellyfish under the Brandtech Group. And a lot of things have stayed the same. A lot of things have changed. But I think when it comes to agency growth and having a really strong brand, I think it's, there's the concept that, is formed by Bennett and Field, kind of, the long and the short of it. You need to have that combination of great brand and a really strong brand in order to get those kind of the kind of conversions. The short is known as the short of it. You need to have a really strong brand. People need to know you in the market. Not everybody is at the stage where they're looking for a new agency or they're looking for work to be done in that moment where they might see you, but they need to have that kind of mental availability that they know, oh, actually, so when that moment comes, when they're thinking, I need an agency to do X, Y, and Z, that they think, yes, okay, actually, Jellyfish needs to be part of that process, or I need to speak to somebody at Jellyfish.
How important is it, do you believe, for the company to have a strong outward-facing brand, but also for your I don't know if they're called jellyfishers or
jellies?
Jellies.
Jellies.
Okay. For your jellies to really be, 2,000 brand advocates that can talk to almost your single-minded proposition of what you are as a company.
Yeah, and a big part of, the brand work that we do is around thought leadership. We'd want to be more than just a marketing company. We want to be a strategic partner. We want to be seen as thought leaders in our industry and changing that. And of course, a huge part of that is the people that we work with. And I'm really fortunate to work with some really smart, talented people at all levels, not just kind of our other VP C-suite, but people that are doing the day-to-day work that are super smart. There's that quote, and somebody told me the other day that it's actually a Kardashian that says it, but you never want to be the smartest person in the room, and if you are, you're in the wrong room. And I do feel like that. Jellyfish, and I think especially when brands, clients, they come to us, partners even, they are fundamentally we're selling our services and time with our people, and actually by sharing and delivering thought leadership and how innovative and how forward thinking we are, helps our brand, because clients want to work with those people. They want to come to Jellyfish because they want to be involved with the people that we have here, and that's super important to us.
Absolutely. So 18 months you've been part of Brandtech Group, and as you say, you've been through lots of change in that period of time. How have you made sure you brought your staff along on this journey? I've been part of a number of, in my many years in media, a number of brand refreshes. Some of them are just a new logo. Some of them do it properly. I get the sense I know where you guys will sit. That's number 2, just so we're clear. How have you brought them along with it, and what are the challenges that you found to doing so?
Yeah, so Nick Emery, our CEO, he always quotes in our town halls that we do every month. So that's one way of kind of bringing people along. But he always talks about the book From Good to Great, where he talks about, you can't dictate a company culture from the top down. You have to understand kind of where, the behaviours and the values that actually come from the company itself. And I think that's been a pivotal thing that we've done probably in the first kind of 12 months, is really understanding who Jellyfish is now from the people that are working there, and also the people you're bringing into the business. And truly understanding that, what are our new values, what are our new behaviours? And actually, a lot of them are staying the same. I think one of the things that Jellyfish has always been, and we talk about it, is we have an entrepreneurial spirit. So there are quite a few people in the business that, started their own businesses that were then acquired by Jellyfish, or, have passion projects outside of the business. And you have that entrepreneurial spirit. That stayed throughout Jellyfish. I feel like Jellyfish has always, in my 14 years anyway, has always had that. And I think going back to what I was saying about, our thought leaders and, our jellies are our biggest brand advocates. We want them to feel part of the new brand refresh. So, we've brought them on this journey. We've had, regular updates in the town hall. This is where we are. There's been focus groups, talking about some of the things that we do. We have had round tables where, each of the individual countries will talk about, some of the challenges, and you start to, bring all that information in, and then the team that's working on, directly on the brand, like refresh and the brand launch, you start to kind of it's almost like a jigsaw puzzle where you're then fitting the pieces in. And there's certain elements as we've been on this journey for this new brand relaunch where we've had an idea, you've kind of fleshed it out a little bit, and actually you think, okay, that hasn't worked, but what can we take from that and then make it even better? And you might bring different people into that journey. But it's super important to us because, as I said, our jellies are our biggest brand advocates. We want them to love and talk about Jellyfish and, really advocate for Jellyfish to do the best work that they can do. It's really important.
So if I'm walking down the street and I meet a jelly,
yeah,
which is not the start of normal sentence that I say, what do you think, what would they, if they asked to articulate what's different about Jellyfish, what do you think they would say?
I think that if you bumped into a random jelly, I think the thing that they would say was different is probably more of the focus around AI.
Right.
I think that's the thing that we've seen. Not just at Jellyfish, right? We've seen it in the wider industry. And I know, obviously you've had Rob from Oliver on, and he was talking about, I don't need to talk about that, but, that the Brandtech Group and David Jones, he's been talking about that for the last 5-6 years. So I think that certainly from the day of the acquisition, it felt like, right, we're pushing more forward now with generative AI. We were kind of doing a little few things beforehand. And of course, a couple of weeks after Brandtech Group acquired Jellyfish, it then acquired Pencil. And that has obviously formed a big part of it as well. So I think that is what a jelly would say is different, is that, I would, most of the things that we're doing now has some form of AI focus, from media using things like PMax or Meta's Advantage Plus, through to creatives using Pencil, through to some of our proprietary technology. There's an AI element in a lot of what we do.
There was an interview on the Campaign podcast, I think it was about a month or so ago. They were talking about the big holding companies, that in 2024, it was really them kind of trying to get infrastructure in place, but they weren't really doing anything. They had great pitch stories, but the reality, they weren't doing a great deal. Whereas 2025 is a bit more about it hitting the ground. Feels like you guys are already 18 months into this journey. Do you find your adoption of AI, when you go into client conversations or into pitches, you're already quite a way ahead of many of your competitors.
Yeah, and we've been told that. You
Yeah.
know, we've been told specifically by, you know, people we have meetings with, whether it's, you know, partners, clients, intermediaries, that they say to us, you are already doing this and everybody else is talking about doing it. Or they're saying they can do things and they're not providing proof that they can do it. Whereas we've got, you know, social proof case studies. We can literally run reports for people, and you know, we've got our share of model platform, social agents, which is proprietary tech that we built, and you know, we run reports for people and we give it to them, and we can provide logins, and you know, people say to us, "Wow, you're actually." You know, you're not just talking about it, you're actually doing it.
It's real.
It's real, like it's here. And I think we've been talking so much over the last, as an industry, over the last 18 months of, you know, AI is coming, like you better get ready for it. And it's like, well, it's actually here.
Yeah.
Like
We've been on this journey for a while.
Yeah, we're actually doing now. We're way ahead of a lot of our competitors.
Yeah. It's really interesting. How do you, as a marketer, everybody's talking about it, and it's a bit like when you go into a pitch. You know, everybody's super shiny in a pitch. If you scratch too hard, you realise much of it's hollow underneath. Mm-hmm. Everybody's talking about AI. How do you help Jellyfish elevate your messaging above what is just a lot of industry noise at the moment?
It's that social proof and the case studies and being able to have clients talk about what we're doing. You know, when we're talking to journalists and talking to the press, you know, I mean, I see it in the emails that I get from journalists where they say, like, look, if you're pitching an AI story, like, I'm going to get loads of them, so you're probably not going to get anything through. I think it was the predictions from 2024. I saw a couple of emails where it was like, look, if it's an AI prediction, it's going to be really tough to get in. And they're right. You know, everyone wants to talk about AI because it's the new shiny thing. But for us, like, you know, when we launched the Share of Model platform back in September of last year, we had already been using it with clients. You know, it was an idea that was formed earlier in the year. We beta tested it with clients. So when we came around to launching the product and the press release, we had clients that had been using it. Yep. You know, Danone, Pernod Ricard. So not, you know, huge clients that we work with who are willing to come on board and give client testimonials on how they're using the product, how they've actually been testing it, and you know what the outcomes are going to be. And that really helps us cut through the noise with journalists and industry press, but also, you know, the wider industry. You know, they're hungry for stories of people that are actually using AI, not just being able to talk about what AI is going to do in the next 6 months.
Rob actually said it in the last podcast. It's like AI is not going to take your job. Somebody that can use AI is more likely to take your job. How have you embedded it in the agency? And obviously you come from a tech world, so it's probably a bit easier than the traditional holdcos that have come from a world of human capital that they're trying to wrap technology around. You've come from a tech world. But I'm sure you needed to also have kind of structured programs of how people learn, how they embed it in what they do on a day-to-day basis.
We're actually very fortunate at Jellyfish that we have our own training like business. And, you know, that started in, I think it was 2014. And that used to be just, you know, paid media, social media, Google Analytics. I mean, I used to teach the social media courses and the digital marketing courses. And, you know, the latest offering that we have is generative AI, and we've made hires in generative AI and Google Cloud trainers. So we have the ability in-house to train not only Jellyfish staff members, but our clients, the wider Brandtech Group as well. They've, you know, so that's really helped. I think also having tools like Pencil at our disposal. You know, I've got to log into Pencil and I can go in and play around with the tool. You know, again, share of model and just like testing and learning. But I think when I look at the wider business as well, there are quite a few people in the business who have noticed this shift. Well, you know, probably, you know, 18 months, a year ago, noticed this shift and have really almost changed their roles and upskilled to, you know, because they could see that AI was not going to come and take their jobs, but, you know, they needed to have those AI skills. So, you know, I know of a kind of a senior director designer who is now, I mean, probably one of our industry's finest AI creatives. You know, she used to design programmatic ads, display ads, and now she is basically leading the way with Pencil and, you know, supporting some of our biggest clients with Pencil. And then a fabulous story about one of our cinematographers who used to work on, you know, on production, so filming videos. And he was saying that he had seen the video from Sora.
Yeah.
And he thought, oh no, this
done.
I'm done here.
Yeah.
I'm done here. So he was like, I need to get in on AI. I need to understand about AI and prompting and things like that. And is now creating amazing AI powered videos. Almost I've seen him on this journey of like, this is where I started, this is what I've been doing, this is what I've been testing, and now he's creating these videos that are just completely AI, that he's worked through prompting and magnetic prompts, and you wouldn't know they're AI. And to see that transformation in the space of a year is phenomenal.
Sounds like you've got a huge confidence in the business. When you talk about it, you've got excitement about sort of what the future is for the agency. It also sounds like I'd be quite scared if I came up against you guys in a pitch. I mean, it's like the difference is you've got the technology that is already in place. It already works. This is the feedback you're getting out of pitches, is the fact that you guys are just, feels like, maybe head and shoulders is not so, but you're ahead of the market.
Marketing teams, CMOs are under pressure from their CFOs on how they can, they can be more efficient, and tools like Pencil allow for that, right? I mean, I think it's still important that we have that, what we call human in the loop. We're always going to need people. You're always going to need teams to be able to activate AI, but AI is allowing our clients and some of the clients that we're talking to be able to do more with less, or it frees up time for the teams to be more strategic or more creative. There's the social agents product that we have, which is basically cutting the gathering of social insights. So the social team or a social team anywhere might produce a social audit for a client on their Instagram or TikTok account, and that can take days. I mean, that was my background. I worked in social media, it took me days to do it. And of course, there's more social channels than when I was doing social audits. The agents can literally do this in minutes, like 7 minutes, and pull these insights, and it's just phenomenal. And then the teams are then able to spend the time doing more. The strategists can do more of what they love. They're gathering the insights, really thinking creatively about it. And it's just taking the kind of the legwork, I guess, out of the possibilities. And I think that's quite exciting about our industry, like the possibilities that you've got when you're not having to do the more admin, the mundane tasks. You can actually spend more of your time potentially doing what you love and being more strategic.
Although this might not be your space, but automation, stuff that used to take 2 days, you're doing in 2 minutes. How is that changing your business model? We hear from a lot of the holding companies now, it's about getting rid of people and automation. And I think there's the question from clients, well, if there's a machine doing it, I don't have to pay for an FTE. Is that having a big impact on you guys?
I mean, it's not particularly my wheelhouse, but I know from that the conversations that I've had with, like we were talking about the use of agents within media and media in housing. Like we work with clients who are looking to in-house their media, just like Oliver in-houses creative, right? So, and actually it's potentially looking at how they can use things like agents to start in housing and support them with some of the work that they say might have got an agency to do that.
Which you have a new one I've seen.
Which we do, I mean, literally just launched specifically for that, for media and housing. So, we're going in and supporting clients who are in housing anyway. It's work that we do more on a project basis, so we can go in and support with that. I don't it's that thing, isn't it, of what you were saying before, AI isn't necessarily it's not taking our jobs, it's allowing us to potentially do more. And I think that, we're certainly not losing staff because we're bringing AI into it. It's more upskilling the staff that we've got to be doing either more senior tasks or utilising AI in their work more. We're always going to need those humans in the loop, as I said. And when you look at people like the colleagues I was talking about earlier who've upskilled, we're encouraging, all of our staff to do that, to practice what we preach.
Yes, absolutely. What do you guys see as your biggest challenge for growth over these next couple of years?
I think there's just so many uncertainties at the moment. I think, politically, economically, I think you're kind of going into a bit of an unknown. I think that I think another challenge is the what is coming out of the US at the moment. I think,
Indeed, yes.
going back to what, we were talking about David Jones, he put up a post on LinkedIn yesterday where he was reconfirming what we already know, that he has, we're not changing our DEIB policies. Like, they're still very much at the forefront. He believes that, DEIB is really important for businesses and teams are better and grow better. I think that's going to affect the industry, the wider industry, right? I mean, you're already seeing the industry press where, agencies are potentially being dropped out of RFPs because of, stances on things like DIB. I think that is going to be a challenge. And I think there's just a huge unknown at the moment about how it's going to affect, not just agencies, but our clients, our brands, right? I think, that is, if it affects them, it's going to ultimately affect.
So we talked about the new brand repositioning, brand refresh, and your new tagline is?
Move faster, smarter, together.
Which I love, by the way. But what I find very interesting is you've moved away from the word performance, which is obviously the heritage of Jellyfish. Could you kind of talk to the reasons behind that?
Yeah, so when we went through the previous version of the rebrand a couple of years ago, and we talked a lot about being a marketing performance company, and as I mentioned earlier, we're a big global company, and it was interesting getting the feedback from the countries where that translation of the word performance is quite challenging.
Right.
So it was, you're then having to use the English phrase for it, and because it was almost a play on the words of, marketing performance marketing, what everybody knows. But I think, as you mentioned, that our heritage is in paid media. That's how Jellyfish started, as a paid media agency. Actually, that's not strictly true. It started off as an IT company, but we're known
Really?
for being a paid paid media agency. But even when I joined Jellyfish 14 years ago, we had a creative team, we had an analytics team, and we have we still have a big media part of the business, but we have a huge creative and experience team as well, and we have an amazing martech and data analytics team, and a training team as well. So we need to make sure that we're not just known for being a media agency, somebody you can come to for paid search. You can, of course, come to us for your paid search, but we also have won awards. We've won an Emmy for our creative work. Wow. We've won Grand Clio for our creative work, and we want to make sure that comes to the forefront as well. We want to be known for our wider digital skills, not just for being a performance marketing agency.
Last 18 months, you became part of essentially a holding company. How important is it for you as an agency to still keep your distinctive brand identity within the new group?
Yeah, so interesting with that is actually our new brand identity is similar to that of the Brandtech Group.
Right.
So because we were going through this brand, it was, brand refresh and the brand positioning. As part of that, we made the decision to, alongside the Brandtech Group, to, ensure our colorways were similar. There's a nod in our logo in the Jellyfish to the ampersand within the Brandtech Group. Being part of the Brandtech Group, we have, our office in the Shard in London. Has now become home to other Brandtech Group companies. So you'll now find Gravity Road and Acorn Eye and Mobcoy there as well. Okay. That's certainly helped with, feeling part of the Brandtech Group. And also the people who work for the Brandtech Group are, there. A lot of them are there as well. When David Jones is in London, you can usually find him in the Shard somewhere. So it doesn't feel like we are separate companies. We are separate companies. Yeah. But there was a lot more cross collaboration. Probably it was a lot slower at the start, I think. I mean, certainly with Pencil, we probably had the closest relationship with, because we were acquired 2 weeks with each other, so we were kind of in the same boat. We formed an alliance, I guess, with Acorn Eye, and kind of became Jellyfish Commerce together. But more and more we're seeing, working on pitches with Oliver, with Gravity Road, one of our biggest clients that we have in the UK is alongside Gravity Road. So we're starting to see more collaboration, and it doesn't, even though we are separate companies and a lot of us with some things, there's a complete crossover, and we're also, almost competing in the market. It's a nice feeling that you can go to, one of your peers within one of the Brandtech Group companies, and everyone's, lovely and really supportive, and it doesn't feel like it's the Brandtech Group. Don't disturb the Brandtech Group. They're really busy, or don't disturb the people at Oliver. They're all really lovely. I was chatting to the team at Oliver on Monday. They were giving me advice about ward entries. So that wouldn't have happened 2 years ago for sure. It's lovely.
What are you most excited about for this year?
I personally am really excited about having the new positioning because it has been a long time coming.
I can imagine it's been the last many months of your life. Yeah, the fact that it's landed well and without a fault, hopefully.
Yes. I think it's been challenging in my role where you have had a brand, you've had a positioning, and then we have seen a lot of evolution, but you haven't had the new positioning officially to talk about. You're kind of eking things out. People, especially when you're talking to partners, they want to know, what's Jellyfish's vision? Like, what do you want to do? Positioning, and you're like, this is what I can talk about. So it's so exciting that we can start to talk about this now. We can talk about what we want to do and where we're going. Certainly makes my role a little bit easier.
Yes.
And now it can kind of, full steam ahead with, really growing our brand. I think especially in some of the markets where we're not as well known, that we really need to, make sure that our brand is out there, with our thought leaders, getting them traction, getting them out there, and just keep continuing to grow Jellyfish.
And if you had or some advice for any other agency that was going through a rebrand, what advice would you give to them?
I would, going back to the quote from Good to Great, Jim Collins, it is understanding and listening to your people, listening to the people that you work with. They, I think sometimes there is a bit of hesitancy around doing that because people just feel like they're just going to get too many stakeholders involved. And, I think you really have to not dictate down. You have to really listen and understand what the culture is from the ground up. And I think that's super important to really discover who you are. I mean, at Jellyfish, we were really lucky with the fact that we've got some amazing people who could work on our rebrand as well. Not every agency is going to have the design capabilities that we needed, or, I was very fortunate to have Tom Roach working on our, on the brand, he's just a phenomenal talent to, not every agency is going to have Tom Roach to be able to work on this or ask questions to, making sure then you've got the right people in place to be doing it. And the thing is, it's like is it the cobbler's children's shoes? Like,
absolutely.
It's always the clients, rightly so, always come first. But, it's sometimes the own agency's marketing can get pushed by the wayside. So it's being able to dedicate the time from, if you've got resource, to be able to do it.
You are a person after my own heart. It's what we often talk to agencies about. Agencies are brilliant at advising clients how to orchestrate marketing to drive their growth. But weirdly, sometimes it's like they don't believe in the product they're selling. They don't actually have a consistent orchestration of their marketing assets and how they go to the market, which is why, unfortunately, there's such homogenization within the advertising and media industry, because I guess at the heart they're client service people and they're servicing their clients, but not really thinking about the advice they're giving to brands. They should be doing it themselves. So it's refreshing to hear. I often use that analogy of the cobbler's children. I used it just earlier today, but it's very true.
Yeah, we are our own shop window.
Yeah.
Every email we send, every social media post we put out, every video, we do social media for some of the world's biggest brands.
Yeah.
We send emails for, so we have to make sure that it really is best in class. And that's a challenge, but it's something that we at Jellyfish have to really focus on.
It's interesting. I had a conversation with a senior leader at a social agency. I said, but you don't do social. It's really weird. It's like you're advising clients every day on how to grow their business with social, and they don't do anything in social. And to that point, it's a shop window. And again, we would tell clients every touch point has an impact on what consumers think about you. And it's exactly the same with agencies. How do you work with your growth counterpart at Jellyfish?
I will admit that in the past, our marketing and growth teams haven't been as joined up as they should be, and have almost sat in silos. Over the last maybe 2 years, I think maybe even before the Brandtech acquisition, we've made some new hires within the growth team, some movement within the marketing team, and we are a lot closer now. We have regular catch-ups. So, for example, within the UK, there's a regular meeting between it's not just kind of Adam, who's our EVP of growth, but Steph from our client management. She's our EVP of client management, making sure that we're all connected, we're all talking, working with Nick, our MD in the UK, to make sure that we are aligned. We're working on initiatives that we are going to hit our goals, and the same thing happens in the US as well. It's super important. But not just the relationship I have with Adam, the EVP of growth. We've got other members of the growth team who are looking after other capabilities, whether that's C&E, right through to people in growth operations, making sure that they're aware of what we're doing from a marketing perspective. What events have we got somebody speaking at?
Yeah.
What emails are going out? What's the latest bit of press that they can send to clients? And it's really connecting the dots. It's a lot about communication and making sure that our sales teams, our growth teams are equipped with everything that they need, and equally, getting it back from them. What clients are we winning? Like, what clients are we?
What's working?
What's
landing?
working? Yeah. What is the latest pitch that we're doing? Like, how can marketing support with that pitch, right? And it's almost the kind of what I talk about, like internal networking at Jellyfish. When you've got a company of coming up to 2,000 people. A big part of my role is, and for the wider marketing team and other people in the company as well, is making sure you kind of know everybody, as many people as you can, and who does what, and building those relationships and growing your internal network. Who do they report to? What's their skill set? What's their superpower? I mean, certainly for me, looking after things like thought leadership, what's their area of expertise?
Yes.
And that's especially true with the growth teams, but also client management teams. Who's looking after what client, that can change. Which clients have the potential to want to do some PR or case studies with us. You've got to be close to those teams to, I think, really succeed within not just marketing, but I think as a business.
We've started a tradition when
I've seen on the other videos.
Yeah. So you get a goat as I give you this. It'd be great to know, as you've grown up, whether it's at Jellyfish or somewhere else, who has been your greatest of all time? Who's been the person that has kind of inspired you in your career?
Well, firstly, thank you for the T-shirt. I'm going to wear it with pride. I've already mentioned him today, but I mean, Tom Roach, right? Yeah. I mean, I'm so fortunate to work with him at Jellyfish. He is just a phenomenal industry talent, and just also a really lovely person, and so open to, you can ask him any, the fact that I can just send Tom a message and ask him a question is just, I'm very fortunate to do that. And he is one of the greatest of all time, for sure. I think the second one I'm going to say is a lady called Yolanda Patel, who was our former EVP of client management at Jellyfish. And she came on one of my training courses before she joined, and we realised we were neighbours, and she joined Jellyfish. And, she never directly managed me, but she was always a pillar of support, and I don't think I would be here as a VP of marketing now without her guidance. And I don't think I really realised that until probably, I think we were thinking about, like, women who've inspired me over the last I think it was for International Women's Day, and I thought actually she's been such a big cheerleader for me and always believed in me, and she's got a really good way of holding up a mirror to me when I'm feeling a bit I can't do that. So I think she's certainly, personally for my career, she's been greatest of all time.
Amazing. Well, as I say, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
it's
you
been
for
very,
having
very
me.
Interesting. And thank you to our listeners and viewers, and please tune in next time for 300 Seconds on Agency Growth.